So today, we will introduce you something about statistics, the statistics behind impossible events. Usually, when people think about plane crash or about lottery, they will overemphasize the probability. Yet, for example, the chance of winning a lottery is even smaller than 1 in a million. Thus, in our presentation, we will walk you through 3 major examples and show you the importance of thinking statistically. Have you heard about Dr. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winner in economics in 2002? He is a master of statistical thinking and critical thinking. He even wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow to introduce to you everyone about the importance of statistical thinking and how people are actually biased by other perceptions or other decision traps. And let's see a short clip of Daniel talking about statistical thinking.
A lot of terrorism in Europe. People were asked about travel insurance, and they were asked, how much would you be willing to pay for an insurance policy that pays $100,000 in case of death for any reason? And others were asked, how much would you be willing to pay for an insurance policy that pays $100,000 in case of death in a terrorist incident? The second policy is worth more than the first. Now, this is absurd. I mean, obviously, dying in a terrorist incident is an event that's included in the event of dying. But what? People are more afraid of dying in a terrorist incident than they're afraid of dying. So that's where the intuition comes from. It comes from the fear. And you have a judgment of probability that is distorted by something else. So
Apart from the example that Professor Kahneman gave to us, we want to provide 2 more examples for you. How likely do you think plane crash or winning a lottery will happen to you? Both of them seem impossible, but there are many people still think that there is a chance. On Halloween of 1999, there was a serious plane crash on the flight Egypt Air 990. All people on the plane died in this accident. Yet, this is not the end of the story. After the accident, an investigation was conducted to find out possible reasons, and there is here. Nevertheless, no single reason has been proved with a direct link with the accident. Even though there was no identifiable cause for this accident, meaning this could be a random event, people became paranoid about flying. This fear is further magnified by media, as they provide unverified information from those so-called experts. There was one entry on the editorial page saying that there is a corridor of conspiracy and identified a pattern. So, are we still safe to travel by plane? On the other hand, people are dreaming of winning a jackpot, but the actual probability is 1 in 10 million. Despite this small probability, there are still some lucky ones. Or are they really that lucky? In 2001, a store clerk won a lottery of $250 Canadian, but this lottery was later proved as a foul play. She scammed a winning ticket from an old man and claimed his grand prize. Calculated from probability, store clerks should only take 57, but they actually took 200 out of all grand prizes, meaning there are insider wins.
The main reason why we make bad decisions is because of decision traps. For the case of lottery and plane crashes, the most serious decision trap will probably be anchoring trap, when our decision is heavily influenced by the first information we receive. The media is one main cause of anchoring trap, as they are responsible for the spread of information, two of which are plane crashes and lottery winners. However, most television stations and newspapers often exaggerate the news. Hence, the first time somebody reads about a plane crash or lottery winner, they become afraid of flying and motivated to test their luck in lotteries. The New York Times itself publishes 138 articles for every 1,000 plane crash deaths, and undoubtedly publishes much less for every 1,000 successful landings. And the same thing can also be said for lotteries as well. The media has no incentive to publish news about people who did not win the lottery. Anchoring trap also leads to confirmation bias, which is when one unconsciously seeks information which supports their decision. But due to the media's exaggeration of plane crashes and lottery winners, we are attached to those stories and give little to no attention to the millions of lottery losers and successful flights. Our fear of flight is then justified only because we completely ignore the fact that the chance of dying in a plane crash and winning the lottery is over 1 in a million. Aside from confirmation bias, the media is also responsible for recency effect. Like the media, people ignore safeness of aviation and lottery losers because they are not significant nor interesting. This leads to recency effect, where plane crashes and lottery winners come into our mind faster than successful flights and lottery losers, making us assume the odds of dying in a plane crash and winning a lottery are larger than what they really are. For the case of lottery and plane crashes, the most serious.
Besides the three traps mentioned above, ambiguity effect is another one. Instead of pursuing the necessary information, heuristics like using the rule of thumb probably is using when making decisions. The main flaw of using heuristics is relying on assumption and information with questionable credibility, including the media. When the winner of a lottery is announced, or a plane had recently crashed, media will make sure the audience are well aware of it. On the other hand, stories of losers of a lottery and successful flights would never make it to the headline. Another cognitive bias responsible for poor decisions is the bandwagon effect. People tend to follow and agree with the crowd regardless of their own opinion. When people start to postpone their vacation and purchase dozens of lottery tickets, we become tempted to do the same. Even people know the statistics, they still buy lottery tickets or succumb to fear of flight. Perhaps the reason lies in the decision environment. Technology like aviation or the weather leave uncontrollable and random variables to determine the fate of the passengers. People always want to seek psychological pleasure. They make decisions based on personal judgment rather than statistics, and so sometimes are irrational. As lottery falls under the category of decision-making under certainty, which is very objective, mathematical, and has a fixed perimeter. So, if we have enough data, we can calculate the probability of winning. However, even knowing how improbable winning a lottery is, millions of people are still inclined to buy lottery tickets, hoping this time they are lucky enough. Another point we should not forget is there is limitation in statistics. Statistics does not study individuals, but it deals with aggregation of facts. In the jet crash cases, the one is most relevant to you depends on your personal flying pattern. If you are a frequently flyer, then the risk per flight means more. Apart from flying pattern, the ability and attitude to risk can also influence one's decision about which flight to take. If you are risk averse, you may consider taking a flight from first world country, which is remarkably safer, or even consider other means of transport. So, all these bias mentioned above will always cause us making bad decisions.
It has been more than 200 days since hundreds of passengers' lives perished in Sewol ferry disaster on 16th of April, which left the whole nation in grief of agony. There are families who weren't even able to retrieve their loved ones' bodies and are still waiting at the harbor desperate day and night. In this catastrophic accident, we intend to examine how sinking of Sewol ferry led to fear and avoidance from sea travel and cognitive trust, which prevented the public to see a big picture in making statistical decisions. So how did Sewol ferry led to public fear of sea travel? Actually, there are several contributing factors. These factors are shown in the slides and will be further illustrated. First, the rescue mission was incomplete. Although the Coast Guard sprang into the action, many were described to be slacking off or not passionate enough. The passengers on board were completely neglected as civilians rescuers said that so many lives could have been saved. This led to frustration of the families of the victims and anger and interest of the public as many civilians sprang into action to help out the passengers on board. Also, there were false information carried out by broadcasting companies. Contrary to hopeless situation at the incident area, media announced that all passengers were rescued. This led to angry families of the victims who filmed their own rescuing process, which went viral in the social networking media. The effects of sinking Sewol ferry was great. The most evident side effect was public fear of traveling on ship. Before the sinking of Sewol ferry, there were also big hits that made the news headlines, such as Cheonan Navy ship in 2010 and other recent motor vessel in nearby countries. The sinking of Sewol ferry played a catalyst for public to connect these dots on danger of traveling on ships. Just like with other cases, Sewol incident is an example of how people fail to use statistical thinking to make logical decisions. People know, of course, that ship traveling on account is much safer than car traveling. However, they unconsciously associate losing loved ones with accidents in Sewol ferry. People worry that a similar accident to Sewol ferry will occur when their children are traveling on ship. So why is this? People think that if chance of ship accidents is small, that it can happen rarely and randomly, it would be more reasonable if ship accidents were more spread out from 1980s until recently. However, it was not. Then people ask if there are unknown parameters such as using old ships. Unfortunately, these people are prone to statistical testing or decision based on predetermination rather than sound statistical reasoning. The people just hone in unexpected pattern of ship accidents and fail to evaluate against statistical background. Furthermore, if the number of ship accidents were plotted along with successful ship travel, it will be evident that the dots that represent the accidents will no longer be visible by the sea of successful travel plots. Similar illustration was illustrated by statistician Professor Arnold Burnett in the book Numbers Rule Your World.
So we walked you through three major statistics blind events such as plane crash, lottery, or even the recent event, the Sewol ferry crash in South Korea. We explained to you about how people are biased by statistics, and we try to dig into the main reason behind the biases. We discovered that effects such as ambiguity effect, bandwagon effect can all influence people when they do decisions. So today, after our presentation, we hope you have at least 3 takeaways. First, people are always biased when they make decisions. Second, these biases can really affect our decision. Third, with statistical thinking in mind, you can avoid being misled by the media, by current events, etc. So please do have statistical thinking in mind and do make sure that you are aware of it every time you make decisions. Thank you.